When Moses and Aaron went to the king of Egypt, the king said, "If God's really spoken to you, prove it. Perform a miracle." God said, "Tell Aaron, throw his staff on the ground and it will turn into a snake." So Moses said, "Aaron, throw your staff on the ground and it'll turn into a snake." So Aaron threw his staff on the ground and it turned into a snake. The king said, "Send for my advisors and magicians." The advisors and magicians said, "Snakes, hey? We can do that." And they all threw their staves on the ground and they turned into snakes. But Aaron's snake ate up all the other snakes. Even so, the king stubbornly refused to listen to Moses and Aaron. This is Storytime with Josh, and this is what happened next. God gave Moses instructions, so this is what he did. In the morning, Moses went down to the river and waited there. After a while, the king of Egypt came to the river, and Moses said, "This is what God says. I told you to let my people the Israelites go for 3 days into the outback to worship me. But because you haven't listened, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn the water of the river into blood. All the fish will die, and it will stink, and none of your people will be able to drink any of the river water." Then Aaron stretched out his staff over the river, and the water turned to blood. All the fish died, and the river stank, and the people of Egypt couldn't drink any of the river water. They started to dig holes along the side of the river to get fresh water that way. The king's magicians said, "Blood, eh? We can do blood." And using their secrets, they turned some fresh water into blood. So the king stubbornly refused to listen to Moses and Aaron. God gave Moses some more instructions. So this is what he did. Moses went to the king of Egypt and said, "This is what God says. Let my people go for 3 days into the outback to worship me. If you don't, I'm going to send frogs up out of the river to cover the whole land. They'll even get into your beds and ovens." Then Aaron stretched out his hand over the river, and frogs came up and covered the land, and even went into people's beds and ovens. The king's magicians said, "Frogs, hey? We can do frogs." And using their secrets, they brought more frogs up out of the river. The king said, "Moses, make it stop. Then your people can go into the outback for 3 days to worship your God." "Very well. I will ask God to make the frogs die. And to prove to you that this is God's doing, you can choose when the frogs should die." Tomorrow." So the next day, Moses prayed to God, and all the frogs died, and they piled them up in big heaps. When the king saw that all the frogs were dead, he stubbornly refused to listen to Moses and Aaron, and he wouldn't let them go to worship God. Once more, God gave Moses some instructions, and Moses said to Aaron, "Strike your staff against the dust on the ground." So Aaron struck his staff against the dust on the ground, and the dust turned into little gnats, and they went and covered all of Egypt. The king's magicians said, "Gnats, hey? We can do gnats." And they tried to use their secrets to turn dust into gnats, but it didn't work. And they went to the king and said, "Your Majesty, this can only be the work of God." But just as God had said would happen back at the burning bush, the king stubbornly refused to listen to Moses and Aaron. Hey there, I have some exciting news for you today. You see, this week in the lead up to Easter, if everything goes according to plan with my video editing, this will be the first of not 1, not 2, but 3 Bible stories you get to hear. Today's Monday, and then the second one will be published on Wednesday, and the third on Friday. So I'll see you Wednesday on Storytime with Josh.